Hey, this is Doug Jones from Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, Hellboy 1 and 2, Hocus Pocus, Pan's Labyrinth, and Falling Skies. But today, you are listening to GenreTainment.
Hi everyone, this is GenreTainment over at SciFi Pulse Radio, and we're your hosts Marx
and Julie. And what you just heard at the beginning of the show was a snippet from the song for our web series, Reality on Demand. It was a song composed and performed by our friend T. Sean Hardy. And you can find our web series at alienjunglebug.com.
Today on GenreTainment, we're going to try something a little new. We're going to do a review episode.
But not of one episode.
No. So let us know if you enjoy it, okay? So we might do some more of these. So this time we're reviewing Season 1 of Star Trek Picard.
Woohoo!
With our friend Ian Cullen, the founder of SciFiPulse.net and the host of SFP Now.
Hi, Ian.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, well, first off, let's start this off with overall spoiler-free thoughts, okay? So that way, after that, people could tune out if they haven't watched this season. But if they want to get a broad idea of what we thought, we can start with that.
So a broad idea is, if you haven't watched it, why are you listening to this? Turn it off. Go watch the whole series all at once and come back, because it was awesome. So.
All right, so it was awesome for you.
A little tip is it's actually even better if you actually read the prequel novel by Una McCormick.
By who?
Una McCormick.
I didn't know about this.
Awesome. I haven't read it either.
It's a prequel novel, and it fills in, Picard. It's actually set 15 years after the events in the prequel novel, and the prequel novel kind of fills in, quite a bit of gap. It gives you all the backstory on Raffi, how Picard got involved with Raffi, and basically. In the story, the Romulan Star Empire was actually in danger because there was a big supernova going through that was going to waste half their planets away. And Picard, under the guise of Starfleet, working alongside with the Romulan government, make this big rescue effort to relocate all the various different Romulan planets to different locations within the Romulan Star Empire.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. It also fills in the backstory for the creation of the synths that were used to actually to destroy the Utopia Planitia shipyards. Also, Geordi's actually working at the Utopia Planitia shipyards. He's actually running the operations to build all the ships that Picard needs to do it. And
so bye Geordi?
No, Geordi gets away.
But to rest assured, to viewers, if you haven't read it, everything really gets explained in the show.
Yeah, the show explains everything.
So because I didn't know about it, and I was really clear on what had happened too. So it would be a fantastic read, and I would like to read it.
Do they mention Worf in the book?
Yeah, we want to know about Worf.
Worf gets promoted to the captain of the Enterprise.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Yay!
Because what happens is Picard actually gets promoted to Admiral, and he leads the rescue operation, and he gets a different ship. And Raffi is his first officer on that ship.
I'm glad that we didn't see an Admiral Picard, kind of stuck at headquarters, and it's just hard for me to picture Picard being happy anywhere but on a starship in the thick of it,
The book, it does fill in a lot of the backstory. Also fills in a little bit on the couple that the Romulan couple that Picard, that looking after Picard at the beginning of the series.
Yeah.
It doesn't meet them in. It doesn't meet them in the book, I don't think. It might do. You meet them in the comic book, which is Countdown to Picard. It's called Countdown Star Trek Picard or something, and it's a graphic novel now.
Now that you mentioned that, I hadn't thought about this, but we kind of lose track of that couple.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Spoiler section. All right,
we've already done a lot of spoiler stuff right now.
Well, it's novel,
Oh, okay.
And a lot of that from the trailer. So,
okay.
But yeah, so this sounds like we all enjoyed it. It is a little bit darker. It is a different kind of Picard.
I didn't think it seemed dark. I don't understand how people are saying that.
But we all enjoy it, so everybody needs to watch it. And now we're going to go into the spoiler section, so everybody's warned.
Yeah, I don't understand where this dark comes from. There's nothing dark.
What is dark?
Well, no, but this show wasn't dark. I don't understand how people are saying it.
It's because it doesn't have the idealized Starfleet. It's because Starfleet sort of like closed its borders to our sympathetic life forms.
Well, but I mean...
and in a lot of people's idealized minds of Starfleet wouldn't do that because Starfleet is all accepting.
But Starfleet's
is all
made mistakes throughout all these series. They've screwed up at some point. They've made bad calls from time to time. I mean, it's never been perfect.
Well, you and I both know that, but there's a lot of people that love these shows that have a very idealized...
I love Star Trek too, but I mean, they've made some bad calls in the past.
I think people idolize these older shows after a while, and they forget some of the
nostalgia takes over, and they don't remember the actual details.
Yeah, because there's
pretty much.
They've made some pretty bad calls. Like they've okayed slavery in the past, and
like the Maquis, the Star Trek was Federation perfect. There wouldn't have been needed for the Maquis, right?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, long live the Maquis, for crying out loud.
And also in the Pale Moonlight, the DS9 episode where Sisko uses Garak in order to help him deceive the Romulans to actually bring them into the Dominion War to put them on the side of the Federation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No?
Yeah, Deep Space Nine especially did, some of the darker aspects of the Federation. And introduced Section 31.
Wasn't there a Next Generation at one point? Wasn't there or which series was it where they had 3 sexes and one sex was required for procreation, and they got farmed out to other couples who wanted to have kids, and they were basically sex slaves for reproduction?
I think that was Next Generation.
That was Next Generation, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then
they had something similar in Enterprise.
And then there was an Enterprise. They actually sanctioned slavery at one point because of the financial gain that they got from this planet. They've done some really shady really shady dren. But I don't understand how people ever thought that Starfleet was perfect.
Yeah, unlike Picard, we're going to try not to curse in this episode. So if you hear funny words, that's why. I challenge.
Farscape has Dren and Frel, and of course, Battlestar Galactica has Frack.
I challenged Ian and Julie not to curse.
Right, but Dren was the correct word there for the S word. So,
And of course, the original Battlestar Galactica series also had Felgakab.
Oh, is that a word too?
Mm-hmm. That's from the original series. It was never used in the reboot.
What is it?
What does Felgakab mean?
It
means BS,
I can't understand
basically.
what you're saying. Feldacap?
Felgakab. It means BS.
Felgacap?
Feltacog.
Huh?
Felgakab.
Feltacab?
Never mind.
What are you saying?
It's okay. We'll write it down later so we can read it. I think it's a word you gotta read. Yes. So anyway, and that's... Well, let's do a few of the criticisms because we already went into it.
Can I just say that it just proves how much better the new Battlestar Galactica is, that they could come up with frack better than this other thing I can't say.
Actually, the original Battlestar Galactica actually created frack.
Yeah, they had frack too.
They have frack too. Yeah,
yeah, they have frack too. Yeah, so
you've
got the original Battlestar Galactica, so thanks for frack. So you better be fracking thankful.
Frack? What did he say? The original Battlestar Galactica is what?
To thank for frack, so you better be fracking thankful.
I think I need to drink more before I do these shows.
So that is the two. I didn't want to start criticisms. We're already talking a little bit about. That's the two criticisms people have given it. Not us necessarily, but other people, that the show is too dark for what they think is what Star Trek's supposed to be, which might be a.
Well, I don't want to watch a children's cartoon.
Yeah, it might be an after effect by Discovery's really dark season 1, I think too. And then also, it's maybe got too much strong language.
I think they do cuss too much. Honestly, I don't because there was never any time where they did it where I felt it was really necessary. It always felt kind of superfluous.
Well, I think Doctor Who needs cursing. I mean, I think that's what the Doctor's missing right now.
Yes, he needs to hold hands, grab his companion's hand, and say, "F and run." fracking run.
Yeah. So, I think I don't care.
I agree with the cussing. It just was unnecessary.
I don't really feel too strongly about it either way, but I did, once I heard the criticisms about it, and they dropped their first F-bomb like in episode 2, I think. And then I noticed that it just kept getting more and more in other lines. Like by the second to last episode, it was like every time they got emotional, they had to throw in.
Well, see, my two criticisms for using that language, which is funny because I curse all the time, is that one, it unnecessarily limits your audience, so parents may not feel as comfortable letting their kids watch it, until they're much older. Although, a lot of this would go over young kids' heads anyway, probably. But, if you were thinking about letting your young teenager watch it, you might not be comfortable letting them watch it until they were older. Also, I felt like they used it too much as a crutch, and it makes it lazy writing. Because, like you said, instead of writing better dialogue for when they're emotional, instead of writing emotional dialogue, just having your actors drop curse words in lieu of better writing. I think that it was just lazy, honestly, which was odd because it seemed so well written. But when it came to that, it was like they just got lazy.
Well, and I tried to rewind in my mind, like when they would curse, I'd be like, okay, that performance, what they just did, would I still get the same reaction even if they didn't curse? They all delivered the lines so well.
There was I can't remember what line it was, but there's one time where I felt like the addition of the curse word made it sound so... It was supposed to be really impactful, but it sounded silly because it was so out of place.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. And then also...
it's like singing Mary Had a Little Lamb and be Mary Had a effing lamb. It just didn't seem to... It didn't fit.
Yeah, that's the Irish version.
It's after a couple beers, I think in season 2 it would be nice if they just tone it down a little bit. I don't have to get rid of it, but just tone it down a little bit because it's not...
It's not like Picard...
Well,
in Tarantino world.
And what were to me at least, the most memorable lines in that show were the ones that Picard was speaking, and he never cursed at all, I don't think. And
he's too classy.
Yeah, those are the lines that really, because you think there's no choice. That's a lack of imagination.
It's a failure of imagination. Yeah.
That was a great line. There's a lot of great lines in there. Fear is the...
Yeah, I gave you the choice to not be the destroyer of worlds.
Yeah. Just everything. Like let's face it. Patrick Stewart, he could read the phone book and make it sound awesome.
What was missing from it for me was in TNG, they used to make a lot of use of Patrick Stewart's Shakespearean training. Especially when he was in episodes with Q, they'd be quoting Shakespeare back and forth to each other, but in context of what was actually happening in the episode.
Yeah.
And you also had that Shakespearean tone and thing with the original series crew as well. I think it was McCoy in one episode. He says, "Angels and ministers of grace defend us," sort of thing, when they were in somewhat of a tricky situation.
Huh. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
And The Undiscovered Country is actually taken from a Shakespeare play, the actual title, The Undiscovered Country. Yeah. So, and it seems to me that ever since Voyager, because it did keep Shakespeare going on a little bit in Deep Space Nine, but they seemed to drop it out when Voyager came on.
That's because Voyager was just poorly written all around, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. It was also with a few notable exceptions, it was very poorly acted as well.
Yeah, well, Star Trek show's in trouble when they have to bring out a model in a cat suit just to keep it on the air.
So... And then Enterprise had
but
the model in a cat suit.
The good thing about Jerry Ryan is she could actually act. That was like the redeeming. That was the redeeming
like
part.
The actor that played Chakotay, I didn't know he could act until the end of the series. I was like, hey, that guy could act. They should have let him do more. and it was always insulting because they got Janeway, the first female captain, and she was just completely unhinged and schizophrenic. 1 week, by God, I firmly have this stance, and da-da-da. And then the next week, because it was inconvenient for her to have that stance, she believed very firmly the other way. She was pretty schizo.
Yeah, and she's also, she couldn't make up her mind whether she was the crew's captain or the crew's mother. Also, it was obvious that the writing team was dominated by men. Because what happens as soon as they have a first female captain, what does she do? She gets them lost in space.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
all the male writers.
Women can't drive.
Yes, but see, that's really unrealistic because unlike a male captain, a female captain would actually look at the map.
Yeah, well, Voyager is not always the best written show, but I thought it was fun at times. And I liked 7 to 9, even though she had a cat. Not because she had a cat, but because of her character.
Sure, I did like the Doctor, but
I loved the Doctor.
I gotta be honest, I didn't care for Deep Space Nine until the war was good. But let's face it, they just ripped off Babylon 5.
So many controversial statements.
I mean, that's all it was. It was a rip off Babylon 5. If you like Deep Space Nine with the war and everything, then go ahead and watch Babylon 5 because you'll love it because they did it so much better.
And if you like Babylon 5 and the war and everything, then go and read Lord of the Rings because that's what Babylon 5 ripped off.
In space.
Yeah.
I recommend I recommend the Lord of the Rings, the trilogy and the Hobbit and reading that and watching B5.
So that does bring up another criticism that I barely have heard, but I heard a little bit. There was this one review, I think it maybe was, I don't remember what it was. It was one of the mainstream ones where they just butchered it.
Picard?
Yeah.
Well, they're an idiot.
And I didn't think it was very fair at all. But they were talking about how unoriginal it was, blah, 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 blah. Most of it was silly because if you nitpick every little scene, you can be able. There's so much science fiction, you're gonna find something. It was literally
stories in general. There's only a few stories in the entire world. Everything's a retelling of a story.
Yeah. I mean, he was like pulling in like a dozen plus different.
Yeah, it's like I like The Lion King, but let's face it, it's Hamlet.
But there is. I could say that in a way, similar to how Deep Space Nine was influenced. We'll say it was influenced by Babylon 5, which was on the air at the same time. Because sometimes things would happen in Babylon 5 that didn't.
Everything happened on B5 first, and then
similar would happen on Deep Space Nine. But which you could say the same thing. Marvel and DC Comics, they do the same thing, right? They'll something happen in one universe, and then suddenly doing the same thing in the next universe.
Well, the thing is,
but Marvel
the Marvel and DC Comics are actually ripping off Greek mythology.
Well, yeah.
But they sometimes have
competition with each other.
Yeah, that you can tell when they have one thing, when a big event happened, they have something else similar kind of event happen. But anyway, you could say that some people could criticize a little bit that maybe it was a little bit Battlestar Galactica-ish.
Yeah, it was. In fact, when we got to the second to last episode, and then we were starting to watch the last episode, Marx and I I was saying something, and I actually slipped it and said the Cylons, and then I go, oh no, wait. They're not called Cylons synths, but I kept, because as the more I started talking about something about this episode, I actually started calling them the Cylons because I just subconsciously was watching Battlestar Galactica a little bit.
Yeah, because the organic Cylons are very similar to synthetics. And they also had duplicates. And
there are many, and they have a plan.
Yeah.
There are many copies, and they have a plan.
Synthetics also had duplicates.
Yeah, but they didn't have a plan in the end, didn't they?
They didn't have a good one.
No. These guys Cylons didn't have plans either. Yeah, nobody had plans. Maybe that's what it is. The Cylons are outside of space and time, and you call them up.
Yeah. I mean, even though I say that, and it was true, I was like, the Cylons... I mean, there were some similarities in terms of that, but for crying out loud, it was very different. Otherwise,
it was very different, and I think
it's done well.
And it's done well.
It's done very well.
And when they decide to explore the theme of Data and his eventual end and children of sorts,
God, I cried like a baby. At the
I think you almost kind of have to touch on synthetics, and it seems like they're tying into Discovery a little bit, so that also ties in. So I do give them that,
Tie in Discovery. I'm trying to think.
Oh, because of Control. Was it called Control, right?
Yeah, it's called Control, and Control was a synthetic life form.
That's right.
Yeah, and it wiped out everybody.
Sorry, I was a little slow on that uptake.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, we'll get more into that once we get to speculations at the end. So anyway, we don't think it's necessarily too dark.
I don't understand the dark angle.
Another thing that was criticised for was Raffy vaping and real smoking cigars.
Oh, good God, that. People, get a life.
They were saying, well, Gene Roddenberry never approved of cigarettes, and I just thought, well, Gene Roddenberry's dead. What's he going to do about it?
Well, and
not to this Gene Roddenberry. He had a wonderful imagination. He bought a Star Trek, and without him, we wouldn't have Star Trek. But You know, these people sort of conveniently forget the scene in Star Trek 3 where McCoy is in a bar and you got all these aliens vaping. And that was even before vaping was a thing.
Star Trek created vaping.
I'm sure at some point, didn't someone in any of these shows have a hookah or something at some point? I mean, come on. But here's my thing. Like, I'm not like, yay, pro-smoking. But I'm getting really tired of this. We have to be completely politically correct now. We cannot have anybody smoking anything because apparently if you have a character on a show smoke, you're responsible for 1 million people starting to smoke for some reason. I see people like jump off cliffs and do crazy stuff. That doesn't mean I'm going to go do it. It's odd too that people would be upset about someone who they make it quite clear she's got issues and substance abuse issues, but they're okay with all the cussing and the F-bombs. But gosh, seeing someone showing the reality of how she's let her life get worse because of substances, you know. Yeah, and this whole notion of you can't have anybody smoke. Now you have to have this many women and this many men and this many shades of color, and then you have to have at least one gay, and then you have to check all your boxes in order to make it appropriate. Things need to work organically, I feel, for a story. And what works organically in this case is, of course, having a diverse cast. I'm not against that. That's not what I'm saying. But also for her character, it would make sense that she's doing that. You know what I mean?
Well, these are all flawed characters, right?
Yeah.
Even Picard is a flaw. He made a mistake. It's haunted him and stuff.
And he, you know, he's flawed in that he's so hyper idealistic. You know, he can't. He has trouble functioning in gray areas. You know.
Yeah. And everybody's in the gray here. You know, the only person that
the other thing as well with the substance abuse, and you know what these people seem to be forgetting about. You know, it's the 24th century, isn't it? Well, it's 24th century, but I think it's actually set in 2399, so it's actually going on to the 25th century. At that stage in the future, if you remember the episode way back in Star Trek Next Generation, Neutral Zone, when you had that guy come onto the ship, he had substance abuse problems and took him out in cryogenic freeze, and he was a musician and he had alcohol problems and stuff like that. In TNG, they cleaned up his liver. So all Raffi needs to do is she needs to go to a doctor, she'll get her liver cleaned up, and she can start substance abuse all over again. There's no consequences for it.
Well, and also
you know?
they could go in and zap your brain and go, okay, you no longer have cravings and you're no longer addicted. You know, you can just get cleaned up just like that and get your organs, like your liver, healed up just like that. You know, I mean, damage to your kidneys, no problem. We can give you a titanium heart. I mean,
well, when it comes to smoking, if you can heal the injury, right?
Then what's the problem?
Then it's not really a problem, is it? Now, drugs, if it affects your ability and you're addicted and everything, But
but she was functional. So what's the difference between using a little bit of plants, like she was growing plants to smoke things and eat things and everything, to manage anxiety and depression versus getting a pill from a doctor in a pharmacy? I mean, it seemed like she was doing, it's the same thing, you know? I mean, we don't know enough, honestly. For all we know, she was honestly treating a medical condition. We don't know.
Well, I have a feeling she might have some mental illness, too.
Right. I mean, we didn't get enough information to know if she's only doing things recreationally or if she's doing things medically. Because she seemed to be able to not do it when she wanted to. She got on the ship and she stopped the replicator machine from serving her alcohol. You know, I mean, in reality, in our day and age, if you drank every day and suddenly you went cold turkey, you'd have the DT, you know, tremors and shakes. You'd be sick. It can be fatal, you know. So she was able to just turn it right off. She could start up and then she could stop again. So either its addiction is a different reality in the future, or she wasn't really an addict. She just dabbled. I
mean, Raffi was a conspiracy theorist as well. You know, she's the one, and she was the one that unpicked the conspiracy between the Romulan Zach Vash and the Mole in the Federation. You know, she was the one that unpicked it.
Yeah, She's the one that figured it out.
Yeah.
A
Well,
long
but
time
she
ago.
has certain moments of if they wanted to go that direction, that she could have some kind of mental illness too layered in there.
That's what I said. We honestly don't have enough information based on.
Because sometimes that can just depending on what it is, it can make you see in different ways too. And see patterns.
It is kind of hinted at in the book that she could be bipolar. It's not outright said or anything like that, but it's very strongly hinted.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised because when she started finding out about it and stuff, it's like she's almost like she's addicted to the conspiracy.
Oh yeah, I think if anything, she's addicted to anything. It's that.
So,
and
would be interesting to have a character who's got some kind of mental illness. You're gonna explore that in a serious manner.
And here's the thing, I mean, some things people think of as a disability are often an asset. I mean, they've done studies and proven that the majority, a lot of people, I think even the majority of emergency room doctors and nurses are ADHD because they thrive on that environment. And people who don't have it struggle in that environment more, So it's just a different way of your brain working. It's not necessarily a disability. It's just a different ability.
Quite a few detectives and computer scientists are high-functioning autism and Asperger's.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's more a matter of finding where you fit and what your strengths are. But you can have a quote-unquote no disability and struggle a lot in life and have trouble doing certain things. And then you can have a quote-unquote disability, be on the autism spectrum, have perfect pitch, a beautiful singing voice, and excellent powers of concentration. I mean, it's just...
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about what was our favorite episode.
Okay, I'm a little torn because, of course, the first episode was the first one, so it's like, woohoo, got Picard back. I loved when he saw Elnor for the first time as an adult, but I have to say probably it was with Riker and Troy.
Oh, yeah.
The episode, because I didn't, when that episode was over, I turned to Marx and said, I had not realized until this episode how much I missed having Picard and Riker and Troy together.
Yeah, I think that's the highest rated episode in IMDb also.
And I'm sure, I'm sure for those of us, like I grew up on Next Generation. That was my first one that I watched. That for those of us like me, that's going to, for nostalgic purposes, and that to me has always been Star Trek, was the Next Generation crew. And particularly, I loved Picard and Riker and Troy and Worf and Data and Geordi. And, these are the core group, and having them together, some of them together again, I was smiling like a doofus through the whole episode. I just loved it.
Yeah, and that's episode 7.
I mean, I watched every episode twice.
Oh, did you? Good.
That episode with Riker and Troy, I really enjoyed that. But another aspect I enjoyed about that was the fact that we learned more about their dead son in one episode than we probably could have over an entire season.
Yeah.
By the stories that Kestra was telling Soji about him, and how Troy was talking about him to Picard and stuff like that. And the irony of that was that their son actually died of something unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Whereas had the Sims not been out mode, they could have saved their son's life by the use of a positronic matrix or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't understand exactly the connection of that with the synthetic life and how that would have saved their son, but you get the gist, which is, had there not been a ban on synthetic life, their son would have lived. And it's very much like the argument people have, some people saying we don't want stem cell research because we believe it's anti-life, because we want to save the unborn babies and this and that and da-da-da. But then, on the other hand, people are going, what are you talking about? If you're pro-life, the stem cell research is going to save all these lives.
Yeah. Well, I like the relationship that formed between their daughter, Kestra, and Soji. I thought that was really sweet.
Yes. And can I just say how much I loved their little girl?
Yeah.
She was
really memorable, and I I hope we see her again at some point.
I absolutely adored that little girl. She was so cool.
Yeah, so there were a lot of good episodes that I enjoyed. I think if I had to pick one of them would be Absolute Candor, which you mentioned with Elnor's first appearance. That was a well-crafted episode overall. And I really like that character overall. He's a memorable character. I would like to see him fight Worf.
That would be so fun.
Worf would kick his ass.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good one. And for different reasons, Stardust City Rag was a little silly in ways, but fun, silly way. And I liked seeing 7 to 9 again.
Is that the one where they tried to go undercover? And
yeah.
Oh, that was hilarious. I loved that part.
And liked...
the one thing I didn't like about that was Picard putting on a French accent. I mean, come on, he's meant to be French. Why is he putting on a French accent?
I know.
What accent did he do? I don't remember.
He
puts on a really horrible French accent. And Picard's meant to be French anyway, and he's the most British Frenchman there is.
Yeah, I love the French guy is like, really? Because the guy sounds like he's straight out of England.
I think they were trying to play off that as an inside joke. But,
I actually laughed. I thought it was funny,
And I liked 7 to 9. The Rangers remind me a bit of the Rangers of Babylon 5.
Yeah, they do a lot. I got that. And I like what they've done with 7 of 9. I did not care for her as much during Voyager. But it was never anything personal against Jerry Ryan. It was just the show, And I felt like she just was, I don't know, I felt most of the time in Voyager she was more silly. And they also, the Borg, when the Borg first showed up, I mean, I literally had actual nightmares. The Borg scared me so bad. Like, I watched the episode where they run into the Borg the first time. I had nightmares that night from it. By the time Voyager got a hold of it, like, we have one in a cat suit walking around so we can get ratings. And then the Borg are sending delegates to talk and all that. I'm like, oh my God, they became silly. Like, the Borg no longer were scary or serious. Once Voyager got a hold of them, if you even said Borg, I just roll my eyes involuntarily. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah, the beginnings of that though was Star Trek First Contact and the Borg Queen.
Yeah.
The Borg Queen, cool, but then they overused her in Voyager, and the more and more they used her, the more and more they used, you use that whole setup of the Borg Queen and stuff like that. The less and less frightening they became, and
they
sort of became just redundant,
like a force of nature almost.
They were so inhuman. They would strip every bit of humanity from you. It was like turning you into a zombie, basically, which was so frightening. And then they just got silly. I
was wondering if they were going to go with like Borg Queens or like synths or something.
I know. I was waiting for it. we even started talking about that, going, "What do you think they're going to do? They're going to." I actually said, at one point I go, oh my gosh, are they going to do it to where Borg were actually synthetic life from the other quadrant that became too powerful and they became Borg and started wiping out biological life? Like, I thought that's where they were headed.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Because remember...
That was actually a theory that was going around the fan groups, was that, the Sims would a Borg sort of thing. It was another theory. And did you hear about the script leak when it came to Rios's character? Did you hear about that?
No.
No, what are you talking about?
Well, apparently there was a script leak to do with Rios's character, and this script, it looked very professional. It was actually really professionally done, to a point where it actually convinced many people that it could have been real. And what it is, Rios had all these holograms of himself on the ship, and they all had different, Well, apparently they had the actual real Rios actually confess to Durati that he was a hologram within this script. Yeah, and I thought that's not going to work. And then it wasn't in the show, and I thought, thank God for that, because it would have been terrible writing.
Yeah, I can think of a few reasons why that just flat couldn't work.
It could be a portable one, like the Doctor.
Yeah, I love Rios. He was such a great character. The actor knocked it out of the park.
Well, what was your favorite episode, Ian?
I really like the one that introduced Elnor. When Picard goes to the planet.
Yeah, absolute candor.
And he meets the nuns. Absolute candor. I like that one a great deal. I also liked I can't remember the title of it, but it's the one where Picard is introduced to the Zat Vash, where with the two Romulans that are living with him, that they're sort of like looking after him. They tell him about the legend of the Zat Vash, who were kind of like the secret police beyond the Socia. I liked how that was all set up, but I think my favourite out of all of it's got to be the Troy and Riker episode.
Yeah.
That was great. Like when they were around the dinner table talking, it was just like another episode of Star Trek.
It was so great. And I want to move to where they live. I mean, I want to move there. Seriously, who does not want to live there?
So, of all the new characters, which one was your favorite? If you're ready, Ian, I'll start with you.
Go Ian.
Well, I kind of like Raffi because I think she's quite complex. Mm-hmm. She's got a lot of complexities to her, and I kind of like the fact that it's hinted that there's some mental illness there, but you're not quite sure, sort of thing. And a lot of people complain about the fact that she calls him JL.
Why would you complain about that? Well,
because a lot of people think that Captain Picard should be respected and should be called Captain Picard or Admiral
But your
Picard.
best friends don't call you that. They have nicknames for you.
Yeah.
And also, I think another point I'd actually argue against them, as soon as we are playing devil's advocate here, is that they weren't serving on a Starfleet vessel, so rank didn't matter.
I mean, it's not like, of course, Riker would call him, or address him differently. He served under him all those years, and he was, his superior officer, and da-da-da. But they met like on equal footing, not on a ship, not on command, and they had a personal friendship that was not really related to their job necessarily. I mean, they were both in Starfleet, but they weren't serving together.
Secret romantic relationship. Just kidding.
So, I mean, it would be silly for her to be like Captain Picard. My best friend, Captain Picard.
She was his first officer prior to them meeting up again, but it's sort of like in the book it's kind of explained that she's the only person that can actually get away with addressing him in such an informal way.
Well, see, to me it's kind of like, if you had a teacher and then like you grow up and you don't see them for a long time, and then you see them again and they'll be like, just call me, by their first name or something. I have a harder time doing that because of my personality and how I was raised, but Raffi would have no problems with it. So to me, it said as much, it was just about how she sees the world and relates to people along with her familiarity and friendship.
Yeah, I mean, if I met a teacher, I wouldn't exactly call them sir or mister or whatever. Most of my teachers, I'd actually call numerous words that cannot be mentioned on the show. Because I didn't particularly do great at school.
Well, I mean, just like I said, though, I mean, it's because it's a combination of their close friendship and her personality. She would have no problems kind of knocking people down to the same level, everybody, just like, when I was growing up, if you had a pastor and, you called them Pastor Smith, that's how you, and then I got older and I went to a less formal church, and I was trying to do that, and she chuckled, and she was just like, you don't have to call me pastor. She's like, you can just call me Elizabeth. And I just looked at her and said, I don't think I can do that. I was like, can I call you Pastor Elizabeth? She's like, sure. I was just like, I can't do that. I mean, she's just like, don't call me pastor in my last name. It's not like that here. But she knew my background. I grew up in church and in school, and even in, the neighborhood, adults were Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. And, you also said ma'am, ma'am and sir and miss. The least formal we got, like if they were younger adults and it was like they're working at the, maybe at the library or they do childcare. Around here, it's common, like if I was doing after-school childcare and they didn't want it to be formal, the kids would call me Miss Julie. And that's how we do it.
I remember when I was a kid, my Auntie Jean was kind of like old school in a lot of ways, and she'd send me a birthday card, and it'd be addressed to Master Ian Cullen.
Yeah.
And
had
I was sort of thinking, I would have been in trouble if my surname was Bates, wouldn't I? You know,
you would. She would have had to call you Master Ian. But yeah, I mean, that's how around here. That's the less formal is, and it doesn't matter if you're married or not. You're Miss Julie or Miss Amy or something. If you're dealing with people younger than you or whatever, and it's not formal, you still are using a title. But Raffi isn't like that, so.
Yeah. So what's your favorite character?
Oh, I tell you, for me, I love Raffi, Elnor, and Rios. If I absolutely had to pick a favorite of those three, it's such a close call, but I'd probably go with Rios.
Okay.
I just really I love Rios. He's this lovable rogue, which isn't surprising. Star Wars, my favorite was always Han Solo,
Yeah, I always wanted to be Han Solo.
Me too. As a kid, when we were playing Star Wars, I always had to be like, you have to be Princess Leia. I don't want to be Princess Leia. I'm Han Solo.
Yeah. And I never wanted to be Luke Skywalker because,
No.
Luke Skywalker was kind of...
He was so straight-laced and by this is the path I must do and da-da-da. And I just always loved the lovable rogue. And to me, Han Solo choosing to do the right thing and everything was more meaningful. I don't know. And he was more fun.
Because, he could have sort of flew away to a galaxy far, far away with the money and not come back for them. But he chose to stay behind because he because he connected so much with Luke and Leia, he chose to help them.
But he does it in his own way. He still maintains his individuality and who he is. He doesn't.
Yeah,
he doesn't give that up to be a cog in a machine.
Yeah, he gets there on his own and don't cave into being pressured into it.
Right.
Just got there on his own.
And that's so I think that's probably a lot of the traits that draw me to Rios a bit more. So I
cigar.
The different accents for the different holograms.
Yeah, I love all the different holograms and the different accents he does.
I love, and she's like, "Oh, which one are you?"
Rios for me is sort of I don't think we've even scratched the surface of him yet.
Oh no, there's a lot there.
There's so much more.
Yeah,
there's a lot to unpack.
He's
there.
an interesting character.
Okay.
So I was going to say him.
Marx, I was say what's yours?
But since you already took him, I will say Elnor then. Is my favorite.
You're more of an Elnor kind of, martial arts.
Yeah, I kill people all the time.
That's not what I mean.
No,
I'm losing my voice.
Yeah, I like, he's a good action character, but he's got
he has
one
honor.
thing this season did that has never really been done is it really tried to flesh out the Romulans quite a bit.
That was. Yeah,
usually we know very little about the Romulans, honestly, over all these years. And I guess Nemesis gave us a glimpse of some stuff, but otherwise we know very little about their culture. And I think this gave us a little bit more depth about their culture and introduced these warrior nuns, which I thought were interesting. To
they
fight
were
lost,
great.
Yeah, lost causes.
I love this. It has to be a lost cause.
Yeah.
The Quatmanot, the warrior nuns. And you know what I loved about those warrior nuns? It's the fact that they put the heebie-jeebies up the Tal Shiar. The Tal Shiar are frightened of those warrior nuns.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some badass women, man.
Yeah, and I want to see that explored further if they carry it on. I mean, I got a feeling that in the second series we'll probably get more of the Romulan stuff.
Probably.
Yeah, because Marx, I remember after, especially that episode, he just was like, they've never fleshed out this society, the civilization that much, and how interesting it is.
They're secret.
Everything's a secret.
They go a lot into Vulcans, but never really into Romulans. And now we have a lead character that's a Romulan, so we can explore that more. And probably recurring bad guys. Probably Narek could be back, and probably I wouldn't doubt his sister is still alive. So
yeah, I think she's going to be a little bit harder to kill.
Yeah, she'll probably be the ball queen in the next episode.
Well, they have it out, right? It's real easy because she got knocked off. We never heard her hit. We never saw her get hit.
Yeah.
And she did that transportation trick, quick transportation, on a couple occasions. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be more surprised if she didn't do that than if she.
It would be like her to just fake her death and then use it to her advantage.
Point. Yeah. And those I could have done without the ancestral aspect that they were trying to.
That was really sick and creepy.
It's kind of weird, especially for Star Trek.
I'm not a huge fan of that kind of stuff, to be honest. I just kind of.
Are you a fan of incest, Ian?
No, not particularly.
It really makes my skin crawl.
That was the Game of Thrones influence.
I guess.
I got to say, Peyton, this looks awesomely hot with ears on.
Yeah. But
huge improvement.
Oh, and that's something else. The Romulans, they explain the inconsistency of some have foreheads. Changes
they all have
in foreheads.
Well,
some of them have bumpy foreheads or whatever you want to call it, and some don't. And now they've explained why that is. So that's another. So
they come from different places on the planet or something.
Yeah,
and like the ones with
look
the bumpy,
different from different places, so why not?
Yeah, the ones with the bumpy foreheads are from the north.
Yeah.
Of the planet.
Stubborn north.
The stubborn northerners. Yeah.
I hope we see those two again. The husband wife that.
I like them. I had forgotten that we just, you lose track of them. They go off world and you don't see them anymore. And I like them a lot.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they didn't keep them around.
Yeah, so I was a bit ticked off that Picard didn't take number one on the ship with him.
Well, that's because they talked about in the behind the scenes thing, the ready room, that the dog was a bit of a hassle.
Apparently this dog didn't have much any acting experience.
Yeah.
So, but I love that dog. That dog the dog itself was just so cool. And the fact that he calls him number one was just awesome. Number one. It was like, what is more natural than that?
Yeah.
That was a sweet dog.
It's like, Riker was his dog all those years. And
yeah.
Steadfastly loyal.
Oh, you know what, though? That's not an insult.
Stop pooping on the floor, number one.
No, because, when I was growing up, my family, everybody swore there's no way that I could ever find a man that I would love as much as my dog. And the joke was always, and they even teased Marx when he started coming around. They said, if you really want to have a good shot, you're going to have to find Ode to Hound cologne. You're going to have to smell like a hound dog for her to really want to be around you that much. Some of us love our dogs so much that, if you're lumped in the same category as our dog, that's about as high a compliment as you can get.
Yeah, so I stink is what it is.
No, you never smelled quite as good as a dog.
A hound dog.
You always smelled like a man.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we see those two going back. So.
Well, they better. And 3 and number 1, the dog.
Oh, okay, yeah, and Soji was an interesting character, but she needs they're gonna have to do a little more with her probably. Her interactions with Riker and Troy's daughter was great.
Yeah, that's where she really shined.
But honestly, after Picard got her, except for those scenes, she didn't really get a whole lot of screen time in a way. Her evil sister got a little bit more.
Yeah.
Very, very young, very, very young actress. Playing Soji.
I liked her. She did a great job.
She's only 21. She's only 21.
Really?
So she's not.
Well, I knew she looked like a baby.
Probably fresh out of drama school.
She did a fantastic job.
She's done a few things. But
really?
Yeah. She's a very unique look. I could have swore she was part Asian or something.
She's Eurasian. Yeah, she's European and Asian.
Oh, okay, so.
She's beautiful, and she's a really good actress. I thought she did a great job.
It'll be interesting to see what her character does now, once they get away from that storyline, maybe. I don't know what they're going to do next. I'm curious to see where they go with it, if they're going to stick with this, because now we have this artificial intelligence alliance out there that we know is a potential threat, all that good stuff. I think, so one thing I heard was a rumor, which is still very much a rumor, is that they want to do a Defenders-style crossover and have Discovery, all the shows crossover in some storyline. Which you could do with this artificial intelligence, this synthetic alliance or whatever, because, they are out of space and time, right? So what do you think about that possibility, Ian?
I'm not sure. I'd actually have to see it to be able to judge it, to be honest. It's not something I can actually envisage.
Yeah, it's hard to do with Star Trek, right? Although it'd been cool back in the day if you had Deep Space Nine, Next Generation crossover, or them crossover with Voyager.
There's also the fact that I don't really think the Discovery cast, with the exception of oh god, what's his name? You've interviewed him before. Plays the alien one.
Oh yeah, Doug Jones.
Doug Jones. With the exception of Doug Jones, I don't think the cast would be strong enough.
Oh, you don't think so?
No, I don't think the female lead is particularly strong, to be honest. No. It's just me.
I mean, Captain Pike and Spock, that'd be interesting if they teamed up with Picard. I don't know. It'd be interesting. Well, what's cool, or what's could make it work, is that really in the novels they've been doing that off and on for years, right?
They have, yeah. I mean, so like at the moment I'm reading the Titan novels with which is basically Captain Riker. So I'm reading those novels, and it's Captain Riker and Troy, and they're running the USS Titan, and they've been in the first two. There's quite a heavy Romulan plot going through the first two, because it kind of follows on from events from Star Trek Nemesis.
Oh, really?
In those, but you're right. The books have crossed over quite a lot in the past, and indeed will do again.
I remember way back when one of the first big crossovers they did that I knew about, at least, it was maybe 4 books or 3 books, and it was like Next Generation. It was original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, and they all crossed over in certain ways. Although those crossovers, to be fair, were more like they were linked together by a similar event or enemy or something than necessarily all the characters teaming up per se.
Well, there's one I've got on my Kindle. It's in my waiting to read list, and it's 3 books, and it mixes elements of Deep Space Nine with Star Trek TNG, with Picard and his new first officer aboard the Enterprise, and also Will Riker and Titan. And guess who's Will Riker's tactical officer on the Titan in the books?
Worf?
Nope.
Oh.
Tuvok.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. He's got Tuvok. There's a character called Ensign Mangara Pazla, who was in one episode of DS9. She's actually a member of Riker's command crew.
That reminds me. That's who I want to know whatever happened to. It was the character who was the real neurotic character from Next Generation.
Bartley.
Yeah, Barclay.
Yeah.
Amanda Bartley, played by Dwight Schultz.
I like that character.
Yeah, is that actor still alive?
I imagine.
Yeah, he's still alive and kicking. Still working too.
Good. I don't know why I was wondering about that character for some reason. I think I confused that actor for someone else. But I would love to see him, because he's someone
the absolutely amazing thing is it's the same guy that played Howling Mad Murdoch from the A-Team.
Yeah.
And the two characters look completely different, but I think it's because Murdoch had more hair because he was younger when he did Murdoch, so he had a little bit more hair, and I couldn't believe it was the same guy.
Oh yeah, he was. I thought that actor did a great job and everything, but I loved him as Barclay.
Yeah, I would love to see Barclay appear again. I'd love to see a lot of the characters. I would like to see the Doctor. There's talk about the Doctor being in it in season 2.
I'll tell you, he was already in season 2. Guinan's going to be in season 2.
Yeah, we heard about that, right? He asked her, so that would be great, and it would be interesting to learn a little bit more about her species, maybe. And
that would be. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Maybe we'll explore the Borg.
How did I forget about that?
Maybe we'll explore the Borg more, or something else. I would love to see Q, for example. I would love to see a return of Q.
Well, there's actually a rumour that Q's going to be back.
Oh, good. He should.
I was not happy about it. Yeah.
Well, and if they end up running into the whole artificial or synthetic alliance, whatever they're called, that might be a Q event that might interest Q, get him involved in it. And he's always had a special relationship with Picard, right? I know he developed one. He appeared once in Deep Space Nine, and then he appeared a few times on Voyager, but he's always a special place in his heart for Picard.
Yeah, and also, John Delancey and Patrick Stewart, both Shakespearean actors as they are, so I'm just letting them to rip at each other is just brilliant to watch on screen.
Mm-hmm. That'd be great. I hope we see some more of them, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. I like the crew overall. I got kind of a Firefly feel in a way with the crew.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. I love it. I love it anytime you get a ragtag group. I'm always happy. I love ragtag groups and quirky small towns. I mean, can't go wrong.
Let's talk about endings. First, endings of some characters, and then the endings of the show. So we lost a few characters. Hugh, Bruce Maddox.
Maddox, yeah.
Maddox. I don't know why I'm mispronouncing it.
Mm-hmm. Or I guess Maddox. I think they said Bruce Maddox.
Okay. And
also the Maddox stuff. It was revealed that Jurati had a relationship with Maddox and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The relationship's actually fully explored in the prequel novel as well.
Oh, cool.
It tells you how they meet each other, and there's all sorts of events in the prequel novel that are not even referenced in the in the series. It's a really good book. You'd probably enjoy it.
I need to check it out. Well, we lost Hugh, which was kind of like,
I know.
Bruce wasn't that big a deal. I mean, really, he's only been like 1 or 2 episodes. But
we lost Icheb.
Yes, Icheb.
It took me a little bit to figure out who.
Yeah, it was a different actor.
A different actor. Yeah, and the actual actor that played him in Voyager, Manu Intirami, I think I'm saying it right. He was actually interviewed shortly after that episode aired, and he he didn't understand why no one approached him to reprise the role.
Huh.
Yeah, it's weird.
Sort of thing. And he thinks that it may have been something to do with the fact that I can't remember the name of the actor, the Oscar-winning actor. He was outed a few years back for kiddie fiddling.
I'm not sure which one.
But
Kevin Spacey.
Sadly, you have to narrow it down.
Kevin Spacey.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, well, basically, Manu Intirami, before he read all the details about Kevin Spacey and people sort of like saying a lot of ill things and stuff like that, Manu Intirami sort of like made the mistake of saying something on Twitter before he'd actually read all the information. And he did apologise for it, and he took it back, but he wasn't aware about all the evidence that had actually come up about Kevin Spacey, and he sort of like expressed his doubts on Twitter, and he got completely crucified for it by the Twitterati.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the actor who plays Stamets in Enterprise accepted his apology as well and stuff like that, he thinks that he might have been blacklisted from Star Trek and Star Trek conventions because of this big thing that happened on Twitter.
Oh, jeez. That don't even get me started on my issues with social media.
It's got to be careful when you tweet.
Or just, if everybody just stopped doing this stupid crap, social media, and creating twit wars and this and that and cancel culture. Don't even get me started. The world was a better place before we had social media. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I hope that was the reason. Hopefully it was just a misunderstanding or something. But
I had trouble. I did have trouble with that scene. I couldn't watch it. It was that
brutal.
Everyone talking about. I can understand that was the one time I
feel like the writer hated that character.
Yeah, I
torture him.
I didn't feel that Picard the series was dark particularly, and I think they could have done without the cursing and everything. That's the one critique I have is that scene was I felt so brutal. It was really out of place.
Do you know that scene? And do you know in that scene where she's asking where his thingy is in his head? She's looking for this processor in his head, and she's asking him where it is. Yeah. Do you know where it is?
Where?
It's in 7 of 9 because he gave it to 7 of 9 in an episode of Voyager.
And
so that's why
I actually couldn't watch. I had to look away, and I tell Mark to tell me when it's over.
How long was that character in Voyager? I can't remember. Was that a whole season?
He came into it the same year as 7 and 9 did, so he was in it for a good 4 years. And he wasn't a main character, but he was quite a strong recurring character, And 7 and 9 kind of had a relationship with him. She was kind of like his mother figure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In it,
Is this the first time we've heard that her name's Annika?
No, that's not the first.
No, that was actually in Voyager as well.
Okay, yeah. I've forgotten.
Because I remember because I like that name. I was like, Annika, I love that name.
Well, I'm glad they seem like they did their research, which is good. So
Yeah.
because I feel like in Discovery they kind of didn't do the research, or they just thought they didn't have to because they went to a different time period.
Yeah, and I have to say, we're talking about her and we're talking about these other characters in in Picard, and I feel like in basically the more recent Star Trek series, they are doing a much better job writing women, because we were talking about how poorly written Captain Janeway was, and it's just so poorly written, and a lot of other women throughout. I feel when I watch Star Trek, and even though I love Deep Space Nine, even with Deep Space Nine, it feels like men writing female characters, but they're men who have had very limited contact with women other than their mothers. And it's just they've never written women well. And they've also, by extension, never until recently written relationships well.
I think the problem was though on TNG, Voyager and DS9. Although DS9, I think they wrote the original DATs really well.
Yeah, that's true.
And also Major Kira was written really well.
Yeah, I liked Kira.
But I think the problem was on TNG and Voyager, which probably had the least well written women on it. Although Troy got the occasional really good episode, and so did the Doctor to a certain extent.
In the original series, women were all just basically sex objects for the most part.
But the problem was basically Rick Berman.
No, I can believe it.
Because apparently it's come to light, that Rick Berman was kind of sexist, and
you can tell by the writing, yeah,
and very old school when it came to sort of like how women should be portrayed in television shows that I was in charge of, and Jerry Ryan had issues with him. The idea, the catsuit idea was Rick Berman.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And probably to Paul's catsuit too.
Yeah, which never made sense. Why would a Vulcan wear that?
Vulcan would not wear that.
And
it's illogical.
And it's I find it so baffling because women have been writing male characters since forever, but it's so odd that so many men have struggled to write female characters. And I just want to say, write them the same as make them real regular people just like men. But
well, you know why women have been writing male characters for so long, don't you? It's because those guys are just so easy to figure out,
Well, we do have that advantage over you.
Women are so complex.
Men are much simpler creatures, but that's okay. We love you the way you are. But it's just, that's one thing that's always been a problem for me with Star Trek. It's always been like, I like Star Trek, but I cringe so often watching things. And just like I can enjoy watching the original series, but to be honest, I can only enjoy it, frankly, so much because it's most of it's such an adolescent male fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, like Nurse Chapel being infatuated by Spock for about 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you not get over an infatuation in 3 years? I mean,
infatuation is really flashing.
When I was infatuated with somebody, it was usually for about 2 weeks before I got fed up and bored because I was getting nothing back. So,
and you get to go to work in pajamas. That's a man's fantasy. And the women all have short skirts. It's great.
The women are wearing mini skirts and they get to wear their PJs. I mean, what could be more?
Yeah. But to be honest, I've seen miniskirts that are way shorter than the ones that were in Star Trek, and I've seen these miniskirts so way short. And I'm thinking, damn, how did it get away with that? It just doesn't look right.
The 60s were an odd time for Star.
What about the end of Data?
Oh, I cried like a baby.
I thought it was done very well, but the only thing that bugged me, and this was to do with all the scenes with Data, is they got his hairline wrong.
Yeah. It was a little higher up or something, right?
I thought his hair looked funny.
Yeah.
It was getting higher up, and it was sort of like it seemed to be a really strange angle. Everything else was perfect, but with his hairline looking wrong, it just sort of
really? I thought it was darker than it usually was before.
That might have been too.
I thought they made it darker.
There's something up with his hair.
I remember staring at his head going, that hair ain't right, but I couldn't quite figure out what it was.
Yeah, he need a better wig.
It didn't look quite right, didn't it? It sort of looked a bit off.
But I thought they did a great job of making him appear there at the end when he was Data. When you saw
Especially
him
his
as
last
the
scene.
person, you see the actor has aged normally. But then at the end, when the actor's Data, I felt that they really de-aged him to be Data again pretty well, very successfully.
They did. I mean, he didn't look any different, really, age-wise, to how he looked when he was in Nemesis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I felt. But I all the scenes that he had with Picard were so touching. And the ones where Picard was dreaming, I mean, to me, they were such emotional, heartfelt scenes that those worked for me each time. And so there at the end, it was just, it was heartbreaking and beautiful. But it was really, I felt
It was only missing
beautiful.
one thing. It needed F-bomb.
I mean,
And
I
of
love
course,
the
Marx
symbolism
turns
of
around
the-
and looks at me and is chuckling at me because I'm like, "Don't look at me," and it was over.
It was a good. We were going to get Data back. The actor didn't want to play Data anymore, and
You know what I felt like? I felt like during his performance as Data, I felt their chemistry was good, and Patrick Stewart just, I don't know, he just really brought it even more during those scenes. But it felt as if Brent Spiner, when he played Data in Next Generation versus now, it's like he didn't have the joy doing it
doesn't
anymore.
have emotions.
No, but I don't know. There's something did seem to be missing just within him playing that character. I think you could almost tell he didn't want to do it, but he powered through, did a wonderful job, and the two of them together were just amazing. That's why it's baffling and so sad that he didn't want to do that anymore. It's like, but you and Patrick Stewart being these characters together are just so good.
He said he'd want to play other characters, but he just didn't want to play Data anymore.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, you could always bring him back as Law.
yeah.
Yeah, if Laura aged a little bit. He didn't want to do that aging makeup. He didn't think it would look good.
I can understand his concerns there, but they did a great job.
He thought in short bouts like that would be fine, but
Long term, it would be an issue, I think.
It wouldn't surprise me though. It wouldn't surprise me if Brent Spiner actually had some input into the writing of those final scenes.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't either because, with Patrick Stewart being producer on there and everything,
And what the season did is it really built on the things that happened in Nemesis and in what was alluded to in the reboot with what happened to the Romulans. It used those and built that momentum and stuff and took other things from other shows too and just try to start everything from scratch, which I think was always missing, like in Discovery and other shows where in Enterprise, where I always felt like they just use the excuse of being a different time period to not do research and also to just try to create their own thing.
It's true.
Yeah, and I like that they at least did the research and they built on the momentum of what the storylines were before rather than just, ignoring them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they built on the mythology.
Yeah.
This was a well-researched, informed show. I mean, people putting this series together were people who knew and loved their Star Trek, I felt like.
Yeah. Their vision of Star Trek might be a little different than what people are used to, but I don't think it was...
I felt the heart and soul was really there.
It was still in there, especially in the ending. It worked out the way a Star Trek show
Right.
should work out,
I mean, I also love the fact that they use quite a lot of rigid classic TNG stuff as well. I mean, for example, the whole Sims thing. It's kind of like you could actually say that the whole season has kind of like been a retread of Measure of a Man.
Yeah.
In terms of Picard was battling once again for the individuality and the sentience of the Sims as a race.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas before he was just doing it for Data, this time around he was doing it for Solji and all her Sim brothers and sisters.
And eventually himself, because he becomes...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
himself.
love, though, that I love the way they did it. That they didn't put him in an indestructible. And I love whenever he goes.
Picard was super strength, but kind of funny.
Well, and I love how it was when they're explaining it to him, and then Brent Spiner, I think, is the one who says to him, "We've been paying attention." Like they're just like, "We've been paying attention. Like we know what you're cool with and what you're not." But just the way they said that, like, all this, and it's like we've been paying attention. And to me, it was them saying that to Picard. We've been paying attention to your feelings on the subject, but also I felt like they were telling the viewers and the fans, "Hey, we've been paying attention."
Yeah. I mean, what I liked as well about that was the final scene on the bridge where Soldier goes to him. He says, "Well, I'm free now. I can go wherever I like. I'm a synth and I'm free and stuff like that." And Picard goes, "Me too."
Yeah.
And I thought, is that a hashtag from somewhere?
But and the way he said, because it really hits home, is like, wow, that's him now. He's the Picard we've always known and loved, and he's the synth now too. But I cheered. I actually did a fist pump in the air and cheered at the end where he's like, they look at him and he goes, "Engage," and I'm like, yay!
And that's also building on mythology, because that continues the brain anomaly he has, or illness, that we learned about in the finale of the series of Next Generation, and there's a conclusion to that.
Syndrome.
Yeah.
Iromadic syndrome.
And I thought it was funny too that when they first see Riker and Troy's daughter, and she's got the bow and arrow, and he goes, "If you're trying, you might want to aim for the head. This is all titanium." And then she moves it up. That's really cute.
Which is Heart, which is another episode.
Yeah.
Let's go and wrap this up with our predictions for next season. What we'd like to see in next season.
Oh gosh.
Who wants to start?
I want to see the same ragtag group, and especially I want to see Rios and Raffi, particularly with him, and I want to see them having adventures in space on Rios' ship. And other than that, I'm sure I'm going to be... Oh, and I would really love to see Eleanor back for sure.
Right, yeah, I think we're going to see Eleanor back.
I want to see... I think Eleanor could really... I think Picard really needs to be his life mentor right now. And I think that Picard gets a real kick out of being a young person's mentor. And all of them together would be good. But if we could just for sure keep Rios, Raffi, Eleanor, and Picard together... Looks like Agnes Girardi's going to be around because of with her and Rios. I didn't care for her at first, but she grew on me there at the end. I liked her. At the very last episode is when I decided I did like her. But as long as they're in a ship and having some adventures, I'm going to be happy.
Okay. I think we're going to see more Romulans subplots and political shenanigans in the second series.
More Tal Shiar.
More Tal Shiar, more Zagvash. But I also think that, never mind Picard being Eleanor's life mentor, that's sort of like self-explanatory. I think that's going to happen anyway. But I think another thing that's going to happen, which sort of like was hinted strongly at in the finale, was I think that Raffi is going to get a second chance of being a mother, and she's going to be able to be a mother to Eleanor in a way that she was never able to be a mother to her own son.
Oh, when he cried and she held him at the end, and he cried. Oh, I started sobbing harder. It was so beautiful. And I think he's really going to be able to help. I think Picard is going to be very healing for Rios. When Rios was like, "I swore I'd never do it again." That he just learned to love and respect this captain again. But
another thing is Eleanor crying. I thought, oh, for God's sake, Eleanor, don't be soft. You meant to be a man up.
Oh no,
get your
it
shit
was
together.
Like his dad dying for crying out loud. I thought it was beautiful.
He was raised by nuns. You know how women are.
Oh, that sound is me smacking him in the shoulder because I'm so darn soft. Ow! I think I hurt my hand. I just hit a solid wall of muscle. It's like trying to smack the rock. No, I thought that was so beautiful. Rios's reaction, Raffi's, and Eleanor. Oh, I just cried. And you could see Raffi desperately, I feel part of her wants to be a mother because how she treated Dr. Girardi. When Girardi was freaking out towards the beginning and getting nervous and upset, and she's just like, come on, I'll take care of you. Of course you shouldn't feed your kid that much cake, but, and sugar, but.
Yeah, I think there was something extra in that cake, to be honest.
Yeah, there was. I had to have been.
But I think basically Eleanor's going to be Raffi's second shot at being a mother.
Yeah, he's going to be basically, she and Picard are going to kind of co-parent, I think.
Yeah, imagine how effed up he's going to be after that. Oh, God.
Give him as co-parents, and Rios is like his fun uncle, and Girardi's kind of like the more uptight aunt married to the fun uncle, but it works out somehow, and Soji, I guess, will be sort of like a sister.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what they do, like where their place is going to be at in the Star Trek universe too.
I would still like to see Narek.
Yeah, he was an interesting character.
I found him very intriguing. I mean, the guy's basically a douche, but but he also wasn't completely wrong either about some stuff, and he was kind of interesting. I mean, I found him interesting. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, and I'm curious, since they said they're going to try to get the Doctor back. With this whole anti-synth thing, what happened to him? Because, I mean, he's technically a synthetic life form.
I'm sure he's been unplugged.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that, because he is well beyond his programming. I know he's a hologram, not flesh and blood, but he can move around and stuff. Honestly, holograms are more dangerous, I think.
I think so.
And remember, in Voyager, we had those holograms who were rebelling and fighting back.
I mean, an android is gone rogue. I mean, chop off their head, smash him, crush him with a car smasher. You're fine. But these holograms, man, they can get into programs and they can hide, and they can do a lot of damage.
Yeah, they can walk through walls.
Yeah, if that ain't spooky, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, they're even more dangerous, really. Mm-hmm. So it'd be interesting to see if they bring that
He's
aspect
been shelved and unplugged.
Yeah, I hope not, but we'll
he had to have been.
Well, Admiral Janeway wouldn't have let that stand. Maybe he's
except when they write her the next week, and she would.
Maybe he's a doctor for the Rangers.
Maybe. Janeway would be adamantly opposed to doing that until the next week when the writers wanted her to be completely for it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do next. There is a talk about trying to get them in a crossover or something. That would be interesting if they did that.
As much as they can pull in from everything, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Pike show, that Enterprise show that's coming. That's in the works.
I want to see a Captain Riker show.
Yes.
I would love to see Captain Riker. He's looked like a great captain, and
I've always liked
If
Riker.
It's like the normal Enterprise where you have family on there, you can have Troy and you can have his daughter too. And that would be kind of cool.
I love that little girl.
That would be a way to bring back, have a show that's got the feel, a little closer to the feel of TNG and stuff, if they want to do that.
That
while
girl's
still having everything else.
That girl's so adorable. I mean, she made my ovaries ache. I mean, she's just so adorable and cool.
Yeah, she's a good actor and interesting character. So, yeah, I hope we do, because I want at least one more series that takes place during that time period, because we're so heavy on the past with Discovery, and then the Section 31 spinoff, and then the Captain Pike spinoff. It's like,
I want
great,
more.
but
I want more.
Present.
I want more seasons of Picard, and then I want there to be other series.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, Picard for me is the only good Star Trek show they've actually produced in years. I mean, Star Trek Discovery, STD.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Well, I like Discovery. Okay, it just isn't, to me. It isn't Star Trek, but it's a good show. Season 2 was
vast
hard,
improvement.
Season 2 is a vast improvement, and it kind of brought things back to Star Trek a little bit, but it still seemed a lot more like Mass Effect than it did Star Trek.
Well, and I was telling Marx, I said, I like Discovery, okay? Especially, the second season. The first season wasn't that great. Second season was good. I said, but honestly, if I feel like I want a Star Trek fix, I watch the Orville.
Yeah.
I don't watch Star Trek Discovery for my Star Trek fix.
I noticed whenever I went to Dragon Con 2 years ago, they had a Star Trek Discovery panel, right? I didn't go to, maybe they had more than one, but I went to one of them. And that was for season 1. It had the captain, at least the original captain, and, what am I trying to say? The captain who ended up with a secret.
The bad guy captain.
Well, I'm trying not to spoil it, but
sorry.
and a few of the other characters and stuff.
The captain who is not as he originally seemed.
Some of the Klingons. It's all this Dragon Con Star Trek stuff's hosted and moderated by the actor who plays Henry Kim from Voyager.
Oh, cool.
So,
Garrett Wong.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And now that's somebody who diehard loves Star Trek. We should bring back Kim and not be an ensign.
Why
They're not
is that
being
poor
ensign
man
this many
still
years.
an ensign? It's crazy.
I mean, it'd be hilarious if he still is.
Yeah, they almost have to do it now. Just keep the joke going.
But anyway, and the crowd was very small, and it was one of the smallest crowds I've seen for any of the panels, any of the TV show panels at least. And it was really weird. I was like, wow, I cannot believe this isn't more full.
Which convention was it?
Dragon Con in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And
I like Dragon Con.
whereas Orville was much fuller, much more energetic.
I like Orville.
Now, Discovery Season 2, the last Dragon Con, there was more people there. It was a little bit bigger, and the audience was a little more positive. But yeah, I think that shows you that nothing against the actors were great in Discovery. There's a lot of good stuff in Discovery, but they just didn't. They changed too much.
They lost the heart, soul, and feel of Star Trek.
Yeah.
With that first season.
Well, I think when you adapt a show, you have to look at the elements that make the show what it is: the themes, the tone, the cinematography, different stuff, and decide how much of that you're going to change. Because every element you change is going to have a risk of making it less what people loved about the show.
Gets you further away from the franchise.
Like for example, Stargate Universe.
Oh, it was awful.
Was too radically of a change.
That was Battlestar Galactica light. They're like, we want to do the cinematography of Battlestar Galactica with none of the depth.
Yeah.
And then we want to totally destroy everything that's ever been at the heart and soul of Stargate ever before and make something as terrible as possible.
Yeah. Well, it didn't use the gates much, which is a fundamental part.
It's called Stargate.
Yeah.
Of course, they fell in love in Atlantis, and SG-1 towards the end of just staying on world.
And they didn't use mythology aspects at all. And there wasn't this sense of, in Stargate, there's always a sense of, we're humans, we're outgunned by the aliens, but we have, hope and heart.
And humanity, ingenuity, and humanity.
Wit and grit. And we'll overcome and stuff. And Stargate Universe was very much like, we're very flawed characters. We're not the best SG-1 people. And we just kind of survive half the time out of luck.
They were overly flawed, and they never were smart enough to get themselves out of a fix.
So anyway, that's a long way of me saying that Discovery changed too many of those elements.
Made the same similar mistakes.
Yeah, whereas Picard luckily didn't do it quite as much.
Also, the continuity with Discovery, with the fact that it was set in Star Trek's past, they really messed up by having holographic communications between ships and the captains.
And
in Discovery,
and
the
how
technology
they
was just.
how they destroyed Klingons.
Yeah, the Klingons, and they're still not ripping. They're still not fit for that.
And they really screwed up the communications. You said I had forgotten.
They do hologram communications way well beyond what normally.
Yeah,
which is like why? Because it's cool, but then don't set it in the past. Set it in the future if you want to do cool looking stuff. There's nobody stopping you from moving forward.
Yeah, don't even get me started on Enterprise.
Well, you could do Star Trek Discovery.
Well, to be honest, Enterprise did a better job of portraying the past than Discovery did.
It did. It was just kind of.
It just wasn't a good show.
It was a little boring, to be honest with you.
I never made it through a single episode without falling asleep, and I have insomnia.
Yeah, it didn't have the right excitement aspect or something going on.
Yeah, the last two seasons really, of Enterprise really picked up, especially that last season. The final season, you can watch that final season on its own, and it's so it tied in, and it also repaired the Vulcans as well. Because they screwed up the Vulcans in Enterprise very early on. And they kind of repaired the damage in the last season because he actually had someone come in that could actually showrun and write and had a good knowledge of.
Because I didn't watch it enough anymore to remember.
They made Vulcans seem like they're more like Romulans. They're more sort of like treacherous and double dealing and a little bit more emotional, I think.
It's funny because I've always had a hard time telling Romulans from Romulans and Vulcans look exactly alike. They're pretty much identical.
Pretty close. Yeah, Enterprise messed up a lot of stuff. The only problem with that last season of Enterprise is the characters were still very bland to me and kind of boring. And
Oh,
I think
everybody, it was
I
white bread, boring.
For a series, I think it's like the characters are extremely important to hook you, because that's the way you're sticking with it, from episode to episode. The plot is secondary. The plot is important, don't get me wrong, but if you don't like those characters, you're not going to tune in on the plot.
The problem was Trip Tucker was basically a clone of Dr. McCoy, only instead of him being a doctor, he was an engineer.
Yeah, but he wasn't a good one. He wasn't a good clone.
Yeah, and Reed was like kind of bland.
He was very bland.
Yeah. Oh God.
And
the linguistic expert was pointless after a couple seasons once the Universal Translator kicked in.
Well, a few episodes, honestly. They were like, we need a translator, and then like a few episodes in, they're like, oh, this is too much work.
Well, it's challenging for a writing goal if everybody doesn't speak the same language, or if transporters.
But they could have done some really good stuff with that.
Yeah, I mean,
the best character was Dr. Phlox. I love Dr. Phlox.
Yeah, he was an interesting character. He was fun.
That Richter Solite type smile he had in the first episode, I cracked up when he did that.
He's the one character I would like to, if there's some way to bring him back somehow, it'd be interesting to see. I guess he could still be alive, right? All of them could still be alive in the Discovery timeline, at least in that time period, I should say, because not that far ahead of Enterprise, I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, basically, Archer was still alive in the first Star Trek movie, 2009, because Scotty was actually exiled to that planet because he'd lost Porthos. He beamed out Admiral Archer's dog from one place to another, and he'd lost him. So that's why he was on that planet, supposedly. So, Archer must have been 96 or something then.
It lives forever. So we all like Picard overall, and it's definitely our favorite new Star Trek show. Right?
Yes.
For me, it's the most Star Trek show they've done in years.
Yes,
it is.
The only way they can improve it next season is by having more Federation in it, and a few more Federation ships in it, a bit more Riker in it, and bring Geordi back.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm Worf too. I want to see Worf.
Worf and Geordi. Oh.
Yeah. Well, and Dr. Crusher. I always thought Dr. Crusher and Picard would get together.
I know. Sad. How did that not happen?
I don't know.
To be honest, if I had a doctor called Crusher, there's no way I'd be going to see her. Absolutely no way.
That's why I like Dr. Slaughter.
This is my partner, Dr. Death.
And my colleague, Dr. Slaughter. He's a surgeon.
You know what my doctor's called? You're going to laugh. Dr. Think.
Think?
As
like I'm thinking?
Like F-I...
Oh,
Think.
Think.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Just thinking.
I gotta go see that Fink.
Yeah, I gotta go see the Think. Yeah.
All right, so we all enjoyed Picard overall, and except maybe a slightly less cursing.
Well, the violent scene, I had a problem.
Yeah, and maybe not quite as much gore. Which, to be fair, there was a scene in the last episode where she, Sanji, was it Sanji? I think she took
Soji.
No.
You're talking about Girardi,
Girardi.
Dr. Girardi.
Took out the eyeball.
Right, but she was like, oh, sorry, and they didn't show it.
They didn't show it. So
well, they showed the eye with the thing hanging off. That was okay. It wasn't great, but I'm okay with that. But that's how they could have done the other scene, is my point.
Yeah.
With her, they didn't get that gruesome and brutal.
Remember was it season 1 of Next Generation where there's aliens were like taking over people, like a body snatcher episode, and they had to blow up that admiral, and they shot him a phaser, and his like body exploded, his head exploded. Do you remember that, Ian?
Yeah, that was towards the end of the first season, wasn't it? And it was foreshadowing as well for a later episode. No, it was actually the conclusion of the thing that was foreshadowed about conspiracy within the Federation. These little insect, these big insect things that have taken over a few key figures in Starfleet.
Mm-hmm.
That thing.
Yeah, and so that was pretty gross. It actually got censored, I think.
It did. They didn't show it in the UK. The actual head exploding. They kind of cut away from it.
Yeah. So Next Generation wasn't always. People forget sometimes.
There was actually another episode of Next Generation which from season 3, I think. I can't remember the title of it, but it was basically set on this world where there was a strong terrorist theme running through it. Like there was one sort of like terrorist group that were a bit like the IRA, and there was the others dealing with it, and Crusher got in the middle of it, sort of thing. That never got shown in the UK until a few years later, because it came out at such a time where things were still a little bit sensitive between the British government and the IRA, because it was before the Good Friday Agreement that came out.
So we want to see more Picard, for sure.
Well, yeah.
And I would love to see a spin-off in that time period. The showrunner said that he had pitched, half jokingly, half not, a spin-off with 7 to 9 and Elnor. And but then they got axed. So
well, I don't want Eleanor to leave this group. I want Eleanor to be in with this group.
I do too. I don't mind. I think 7 to 9 is strong enough to be her own spin-off maybe, but with some other characters. I mean,
there would have to be another ensemble cast, I think.
For yeah.
I mean, I think it's strong enough to go for 3 seasons.
Picard, I think so.
Yeah, but I don't think you'll get more than 3 seasons out, because Patrick Stewart's not getting any younger.
I was going to hope for 5.
Well,
I said hope. I didn't say we're going to get it.
He's 79 now, but he keeps himself in pretty good shape, so you never know. But I want to see a spin-off of it.
His wife's
I want
almost
a spin-off
half
of
his
it.
age. Huh?
Well, that's how those guys roll.
That's going to increase his chances of dying. Every night is high risk scenario.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ian. I cut you off. What were you saying? His age.
What I want to see is a spin-off where it's set on the Enterprise G.
Yeah. I wonder what that Enterprise is like.
Yeah, because we've had the Enterprise E. We'll skip over the F and go right to the G. Different captain, different crew, and they could still have characters and elements from Picard come into that show and go out with that show. But I want to see what the Federation is like now after all of this.
I do. I want to see more Federation. Yeah. Because
the Federation at the beginning of Picard is obviously broken. It had to have changed a great deal for Picard to have left it. And again, a lot of that's also explained in the books. In the books, the prequel book. It's sort of like I want to see what the Federation is now in this period of time, because obviously Riker's come back and they're trying to repair it. And the one thing I was disappointed with in the finale was all those Federation ships looked identical, and the fleet of Federation ships would have different styles of ships, sort of thing in previous series. Whereas in that, it was sort of like it was a bit of a cut and paste job.
It was, and all the warbirds are identical too, right? So
yeah,
it's kind of a letdown in that sense. And they're all supposed to be whatever that ship design was. That's supposed to be the newest one. And
I'm not buying.
Yeah, that was disappointing, but yeah, I do. I agree with you. I want to see a new Enterprise in the present, and I wouldn't mind if Worf is the captain. To be honest,
yeah, that'd be nice.
Cool. I would have. Here's my dream Enterprise crew, right? If I was somehow connecting it to previous characters, have a Worf as captain, have a Dax as maybe second in command.
Okay.
Have the Doctor as the Doctor. And then, I don't know who else off the top of my head after that. Archer, because he's still alive. No, just kidding.
Yeah, Archer's in one of those wheelchairs that Pike was in, where it's two flashes for no and one flash for yes.
Oh, and a higher ranked than Ensign, Henry Kim.
What about, did you mention Geordi?
Yeah, well, Geordi's already kind of doing something, but I'd be cool with Geordi being in it too.
Yeah, and how about Fleet Admiral Wesley Crusher?
Yeah.
Well, he's off traveling through time and space.
I was say he left a long time ago.
Yeah, he could pop up again though because of this whole. If they had to fight something out time and space, I could see him popping in.
I'm trying to think. What was his name? Oh, never mind. It'll take me too long to figure it out.
Mentioning Will Wheaton, I do like how they are doing the Ready Room, where you get this half-hour episode, a companion of every episode talking about it. I think
Who was the
great.
Scottish guy from, was it Voyager?
The Scottish guy from Voyager. I don't remember a Scottish guy from Voyager.
I'm getting
Deep Space Nine?
Deep Space. Yeah.
O'Brien?
Yeah,
Deep
O'Brien.
Space Nine,
Thank you.
He was Irish.
Irish. Okay, it's been so long. I couldn't even remember what series he was from. I don't remember that well. I just remember that I liked him.
He was actually the transporter chief aboard the Enterprise D.
Oh, okay.
But he transferred to DS9
I didn't get the nationality. I didn't even get the exact series right. I have a couple flashes of like a couple of scenes, and I just remember when I did watch that show back then that I liked him.
Yeah, so I mean that would be an interesting crew, and then a bunch of new people. So, or Tuvok would be interesting too, to be honest. Tuvok and
Sochi could join.
Yeah. I want to see the Enterprise G with an entire new crew. I don't want to see any characters from TNG. You know, I don't mind seeing characters come in for episodes here and there, or even there being a crew member from the TNG era on this new Enterprise G. But I don't want it to be entirely crewed by. I want to see new characters.
Well, I would like to see that with a entirely new group. But I would like to have something else with some of the old group, you know?
Yeah. Well, because I want to know what's happened to some of them. And I think Worf is a character I could still do stuff with. And
Next Generation is my favorite crew, really. And the original series, the three, Kirk, Bones, and Spock, they had great chemistry. The three of them together were really great. But if you're talking about I like Picard better as a captain, and I just feel like the overall ensemble cast was so strong.
Yeah, that was the strongest, I think, overall.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious to see what happened to all the Voyager people, after they got back. What happened to them? I'm curious. The only character that got on my nerves sometimes was Neelix on that show. But
Neelix got on my nerves all the time. I hated it.
He was too much. He's not as bad as, say, Jar Jar Binks, but he was just too much comedy relief. It's too.
Means I don't know what she's talking about, eh? What's so annoying, eh? I'm doing Canadian. I don't know why.
He's Canadian.
Well, I think in Voyager, Kim went on to be a captain, didn't he? Because he was a captain in Endgame.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was captain in his own ship in Endgame.
I remembered him being something higher, but I didn't remember.
Oh, I forgot.
Well, that's just basically how bland his character was.
Well, I remember Admiral
It was just
Janeway.
the bad writing. Yeah, I remember Admiral Janeway. It was just the writing. I mean, the actor, I thought, did a fine job. They just didn't give him anything. Same thing with Chakotay. I mean, poor guy could actually act. They just had him follow this schizophrenic, crazy, I'm a woman, so I must be nuts, captain around, follow around like a puppy dog and be like, yes, captain, yes, captain, yes, captain, and stand there. Guy could have actually done more.
He inspired Mike Tyson to get a facial tattoo.
But I think, the guy that played Kim can act. I've seen him in lots of other stuff, I think he's more involved in production now. I think he's sort of like got more into sort of like producing stuff now than he is.
Well, it's smart. I mean, you got to kind of branch out because it gets harder to get acting roles, particularly older and particularly Asian. I mean, honestly, there's not a lot of opportunities. There's more now than there used to be, but Asians and Native Americans are very, very underrepresented. Native Americans most so, but.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was watching that. I've recently got Disney Plus. I've been watching some of the older films on it that I remember watching growing up. And like last night, I watched The Cat from Outer Space.
Yes, I know. I watched all those old movies, and I loved those.
I watched Davy Crockett, which was like probably the most annoying.
Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier.
Yeah, that was really annoying.
I liked.
It was like every 5 minutes.
I like Daniel Boone, that TV show, when I was growing up too.
But I mean, I don't think we'll get the Daniel Boone show on Disney Plus. I don't think it's actually on our version of it.
No, I thought it was on ours. I could be wrong, but
not sure.
Well, there's different content on the UK one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've only got 3 episodes of The Mandalorian, for God's sake, and that's already aired. And I'd really want, and we're about 2 weeks behind on Clone Wars as well. I just think they should just show it at the same time. There's no excuse for this.
I don't understand in this day and age why there has to be a difference.
Yeah, they need to. It's ridiculous.
Because people are downloading it, and the news, if people are downloading it, what's the point in them having Disney Plus?
Yeah.
All
right, well, let's wrap up this conversation real quick. We all liked Picard overall. Let's rank it real quick. 1 out of 5 cents.
5.5.
5.5. How about you, Ian?
5 and a human.
5 and a human. Yeah.
See, to me, the human would knock it down a notch, but okay.
5 and a hologram. 5 hologram cents. Haha. Yeah. All right, so we all liked it. Can't wait for it to come back.
Wait, you didn't rank it.
I said 5 cent holograms.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Synth holograms are superior to the flesh and blood sets. So
I'm gonna one up you here. I'm gonna say 5 and a ninja samurai snail.
You know what I'm gonna say? 5 of the K9 number 1s.
I'm gonna say 5 Herogen species, whatever the heck it was called in Voyager.
84901 or something.
Hybrid genetic mix that are adapted by the Borg. 5 of those.
5.5 Cylons. Oh, sorry, they're not called Cylons. No, 5.5 Pitbull number 1s. That's what I'm going to say.
All right. So we
that outranks everybody.
5.5 weeks.
So we all enjoyed Picard. Can't wait for season 2. Hope there's many more seasons, and we hope there's a spinoff. So hopefully. All right. So
they need to get Patrick Stewart a Gollum.
Oh, a Gollum, yeah. 5 Patrick Stewart Gollums. That's what we're gonna rank.
5.5 Patrick Stewart Gollums all around. Or 5 Patrick Stewart Gollums and a K9 number 1.
We have a number 1, K9 number 1. That's also synth. They'll live forever.
Oh, that's how you could improve the dog. Yes.
All right. So...
And he's always feeling rough.
All right. So that's it for today's GenreTainment. Check back next time. And you can check us out over at GenreTainment.com.
Yes.
And Ian, where can they find you?
Oh, you can find a lot of my stuff on SciFi Pulse.net, and we also do the SFP Now podcast every now and again, which you can find on SciFi Pulse.net. It's a little sideway player.
All right.
Cool. And most people right now are kind of locked down and locked in and have time to listen to all these wonderful podcasts.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got over 200 episodes for you to catch up on.
Yeah. So, see, we're doing our part for humanity, keeping you entertained.
Yes. So, until next time.
Until next time.
Bad monkey.
Okay, here comes the music.